Welcome to the Spike Camp podcast. Spike Camp is a free online community for hunters that support conservation. It's a great place to share stories and your experience with other hunters. As a member of Spike Camp, you get access to all of our hunting live streams, discussion channels, contests, hunter resources, and events that we host. Membership to Spike Camp is free. Our only ask is that you are a member of a hunting or conservation group before you register. Head over to spikecamp.com to join us. This episode of the Spike Camp podcast is brought to you in part by Precision Optics. Omer and his team are the ones to trust when it comes to mountain hunting gear, guns, and optics. Precision Optics is a major supporter of conservation, and we are proud to partner with them. Head over to precisionoptics.net and tell them that Spike Camp sent you. Hey everyone, this is Blake here, just jumping on as a preface before we start the episode with Shane Pallister. We unfortunately had some audio issues with this episode. You'll notice it whenever Chuck is talking. So Shane was calling in from his phone, and whenever Chuck talked, the audio was kind of coming through the speaker and getting pulled back into the recording. So it's a little unfortunate, but whenever Shane talks, the audio is pretty much perfectly clear. There really isn't any issues there. So kind of two options for you. The first one is just skip along if it's unbearable in sections where Chuck's talking, that echo keeps coming back, or skip to around the 20-minute mark. We paused the show at about 20 minutes in to try and fix it. I think we did achieve that. We fixed it for the most part. It does kind of come back and forth a little bit throughout the rest of the episode, but the first 20 minutes are by far the most annoying from a technical standpoint. So you could always just skip right to 20 minutes and go forward from there. So thanks for your patience. We'll try to do better next time, and we appreciate your support. We've got 2 more nights of sheep camp coming up this week. If you're listening to this, the time of recording, July 16th is when I'm putting this together. So thank you very much, and we'll see you on Spike Camp.
Welcome everybody to the second episode of our sheep camp. Our friends at Asiak Equipment have donated an ultralight tripod, a head, and a final clamp to give away on the series. So make sure you register on the platform for sheep camp. Get your name in for that. Rydell at Asiak's a hardcore hunter, and he builds some really good gear. So we have a very special guest tonight. If you have searched up sheep hunting on YouTube, then you have probably seen his video. It's called the Epic 39-Day Sheep Hunt on the Trail of Chadwick. So Ram Hunter Pallister is the channel. I think he's got 2 videos on there with one of them's got like 105,000 views. That's what I saw this afternoon, and it seems to be climbing. So Shane Pallister, welcome to Spike Camp.
Thank you.
How are you doing tonight?
Any better, I'd be twins.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool. So are you in the you're in the family house, like your dad's place then? Is that where you are?
No, I'm at my house.
Okay.
We
Cool.
both live on the same ranch, so
Right on.
yeah.
Cool. Well, we've been chatting for quite a few months about getting you on the show to do an interview. So
Yeah,
we're
it's a
pretty
pleasure.
stoked. Yeah, right on. Pretty stoked to have you on. So maybe before we get going, could you give our audience a brief intro and background, if you don't mind?
Sure. We originally came from Montana. My father, after he was discharged from the Navy, honorable discharge, he went to school to be a biologist, and early years of my life grew up in Daisy Pass in Montana in the Beartooth Mountains. We were up over 10,000 feet living in a Forest Service station where he did his thesis on bighorn sheep. So I grew up, everything he was doing was about sheep. He was doing telemetry studies and vegetation studies up in the mountains, forage studies, seeing what they were eating, where they were traveling, and all that kind of thing. A lot of that people weren't doing any of that at the time. So, and they didn't really have any idea how many sheep there were up there, or what they were doing, or where they were going. So he was kind of instrumental in piquing the interest of the Fish and Wildlife about, their habitat, what they were doing, that sort of thing. So earlier in life, I had kind of maybe one of the rarest forms of cancer for somebody my age, and had a long history in the hospital early on. And I think I was about 12 years old when my dad decided to move to Canada, and ironically, that was right about the same time he paid his last payment for the medical bills that we'd acquired for me being in the hospital at a young age. We came up to Canada, and he started working in the oil field. We lived on a ranch, had cows. I grew up on a horse. We had 600 yearlings and no fence, so we kind of learned that we were doing the old cowboy stuff back in the day.
Wow.
Spent a lot of time riding horses, and then we were hunting all the time. So we just kind of morphed into hunting in the mountains, and we started, hunting here and there, not doing anything really serious, no sheep hunting or anything like that, just caribou and a few things that we never had hunted when we were in Montana. And then my health, I had complications from the radiation that they gave me when I was younger. So I ended up, my spine destabilized from the radiation that they had used, kind of like an old style source radiation on me for chemotherapy. So it damaged my spine, and as a consequence, I had to spend almost a year, or a little over a year, in the Children's Hospital in Vancouver. They put me in traction and screwed a halo into my skull and cut all the muscles loose from my spine, and and then eventually, when they had it straightened out enough, they took my tibia out of my leg and they fused it to 5 of my cervical vertebrae, fused the vertebrae together.
Wow.
And somewhat stabilized it, and then told me I could never go in the mountains. I couldn't backpack. I couldn't carry anything heavy. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do that.
Holy shit.
And I spent a year in a body cast after that.
Really?
Had complications from that. I got a pressure sore, and then had to go back down for a skin graft, and they had to split my latissimus muscle in half and put it up underneath my left scapula. So I spent another 3 or 4 months in the hospital with that. I finally got the cast off and came back for a checkup in a year, and the doctor's like, "You seem to be like in really good shape. What have you been doing with yourself?" I said, "Oh, we've been trapping, and we're running horses, and I broke 3 this spring, and we just started hunting. We're heading in the mountains this fall." And he goes, "You're doing what?"
I guess so. Man, holy.
Then it kind of morphed into, mountain hunting, and my dad had just started kind of messing around with sheep hunting a little bit. The first year that I went, I got one, and I was the guy. We'd go in elk hunting and moose hunting, and I would ride right by where they were camped and leave them and take a light pack with a pack horse and head farther into the mountains. And I'd come back after I killed the sheep. I wouldn't mess around with the elk or moose.
You're having too much fun out with the sheep up in the mountains.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Shane, how old were you when you first ran then?
My first one, I was just 19. It was in 1989.
Okay.
And bizarrely enough, the first ram I ever killed, I killed it 7 feet away from me.
7 feet.
We had seen it on another ridge, a lot farther away where we were elk hunting, and you could tell it was a nice ram from that distance. It was quite a ways away, so we decided to make a play for it and spent a day riding to get to where we'd seen it, and rode up the ridge, got our horses up as high as we could, and then hiked up the rest of the mountain. Hiking up the ridge line, and there was a big kind of rocky bluff down the ridge line.
Right.
And it was almost vertical, and we were trying to figure out how to get around it, or how we were going to get around it, because there was a big rock slide below it, and there was a sheep trail that kind of went up the face of it, too steep to walk up, but you could tell there'd been animals going up and down it. And we were just standing on this flat spot with this cliff face beside us, and all of a sudden I heard some rocks rattling, and I looked up the face in front of me, and 4 rams came running right down the rock face right at us. and the one in the lead was the biggest one, and I literally hip shot it running by me.
Jesus.
Like I just stuck the gun on front of me, punched it in the ribs, and then muzzle blasted the hell out of my dad, and then threw the gun to him and ran down the rock slide and grabbed the sheep and held it while it was dying to keep it from rolling down the hill.
And falling. Oh my God.
It kicked
You're
the shit
kidding.
out. Oh, but I wasn't letting go of it because it was like, I don't know, a couple thousand feet down this rock slide straight down into the river bottom. So that was that was my introduction to sheep.
Oh, that's an awesome story.
And then we were just kind of congratulating ourselves, and, you know, taking a few pictures with I don't even know what kind of camera, probably the wind and click ones.
Yeah.
All of a sudden we hear, "You bugger, you shot my ram!" And we look up over the top of the hill, and this Indian's looking over the top of the hill at us, and he's like, "You shot my ram!" And I go,
"Oh,
that's not your ram, it's mine."
It's got my bullet in it.
And he was wearing moccasin rubbers and moccasins, you know, really good shape. His name was Jimmy Cardinal. He'd been guiding all over in the mountains up there.
Oh yeah.
He goes, "Wow, we saw that ram on the other side of the mountain, and my client wanted to shoot at it. I told him we'd catch up to it on the other side of the hill. Yeah, I guess we're not going to catch up to it now." So yeah, that was kind of my introduction to sheep hunting. So.
Oh man. So I have a couple questions on that because that's an amazing story. First of all, had your dad shot a ram at that point in his life, or was he the first one?
He had shot a ram 3 years before that. He was up caribou hunting up in the Nevis Valley, and they ran across some rams. I mean, he was wearing blue jeans and a flannel jacket and a cowboy hat. Hiked up the mountainside in the snow, and there's a couple feet of snow, and shot this ram. That was the first stone ram he ever got.
Oh, that's cool. And so, how old were you when your dad got his ram? Were you still?
I would have been like 17. I would have been like, not too long after we got out of. I would have not been well enough to go into the mountains at that point.
Wow, that's awesome. So, on this hunt, you were 19. What was it like physically for you at that point? Like, I mean, you're running up mountains, you're running down mountains, grabbing rams after all this treatments and surgery. I mean, how were you physically as far as condition goes at that point?
I was in good shape. I was very healthy, very strong. Yeah.
Mind over matter, I guess.
Yeah. The only issue that I ever had, really realistically, was just the aerobic side of things, because I only have like 42% of my lung capacity. So hiking's always been a grind for me. You know, I'm always watching people hiking ahead of me and effortlessly climbing the mountains. I'm just like, you bastards, slow down.
Yeah.
But the only difference is, you know, I could climb that mountain 100 times in a row and eat the same food, wear the same clothes, and live under a rock. Most people are going crazy, you know. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's the perfect way to explain it, right? The physical ability is one thing, but the will to get there is another, right?
Yeah, I'm undoubtedly the worst times in my life. They're right on par with laying in that hospital bed looking at the ceiling, but they're the worst time. All of the worst times I've ever had in my life are all sheep hunting. Like the worst experiences, the worst weather, the worst exposure, the worst exertion, you know. But always, in hindsight, the best, you know.
Yeah, well, it's memories, right?
Yeah, there's a picture of my dad and I on his wall in the den, and it says, we had gone in on a 7-day trip and killed 2 big moose and 2 bull elk and two stone sheep, and made a couple trips up. There's a picture of us at the truck, all covered in mud, and we got our pack string strung out in front of us. And if you flip the thing around and look on the back of it, it says, it was the best of times and the worst of times.
You know what? Correct me if I'm wrong. I've watched your video so many times. It's ridiculous. But isn't that something your dad says in the film? I think he quotes that.
I don't know if he says. I think he might have just said it's the best time.
Something like that. Yeah, it was something along those lines. But yeah, you're right. You know, it's it's those memories, right, that stick with you, and that's why you keep going back. So, going through your early career as a hunter, then was your dad always your sheep hunting partner or like main hunting partner? Like from
Yeah,
that?
he's my best friend. Like we did everything together all the time. So, and
Yeah,
he's very excessive about everything he does. He doesn't have an on-off switch, or he doesn't
yeah,
know about moderation. So anything that he does is over the top. He never drank a lot, but when he did drink, he was like good time Charlie. So he had to give that up a long time ago. My mom's like, this isn't for you.
yeah. I could relate. I'm one of those guys too that I'm kind of all in, and I haven't drank in 12 years, but I'll just say when I used to drink, I was pretty damn good at it too.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So I mean, he's kind of morphed over into golfing and this and that. So
yeah.
whatever he still hunts a lot. And
Hmm.
he definitely doesn't mind overdoing things, and he's kind of
Now, sorry, go ahead.
and he's yeah. I kind of learned from him that way. So he
Hmm.
always he always jokes, and I always tease him about that. He goes, "You're 1,000 times worse than I ever thought it'd be."
Yeah, I bet. Now, how old's your dad now?
He's gonna be 79 in October.
Holy cow! And you told me a few months ago when we chatted that he's still in his mind was planning a hunt this year. Is that on?
As we speak, he's trying to put together a horse string.
Okay.
I'm like, you might want to. I sat him down the other day. So you might want to consider you're 80 years old, and I do this for professionally now, and there aren't 80-year-old people riding horses in the mountains, especially not on their own. And
Yeah,
he's like, well, I'd rather die up there than, and I'm like, well,
that might be an option.
my mom might not be too happy with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's definitely got the heart for it.
Oh, that's awesome. Um, so you guys have always used horses then, I take it. Sounds like you have, right?
We've hunted sheep every way you can hunt them,
Okay.
and horseback's, been by and large our most successful way of doing it.
Mhm.
We've gone hunting, or I mean, I personally, I've gone hunting with the mindset of covering country. Like I don't just stay in one spot. Like
Mhm.
I move a lot, look over a lot of ground, and cover a lot of country. It seems to work the best. I mean, if you can do it and you have the resources, and the
Yeah, and
time.
I suppose I mean we try to do the same, but we don't have horses, so the amount of country we cover is less. But I imagine that's a big advantage with a string of horses, right? Is you can
Oh
put so many
yeah,
miles on, right?
I've seen a ram 2 mountain ranges away and gone after it and killed it in the same evening that I've seen it. So
Sure.
you couldn't do that on foot.
No.
Not, I mean, some people it can, but I'm not one of them.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. There's lots of guys that'll see those rams, and it might take them a day and a half to get there, but they'll get there and kill it,
Oh
right? They'll
yeah,
go through the
I've
Pita
met
Blizzard.
I've met some tremendous athletes. There's people, especially there wasn't so many back 20 or 30 years ago like that, but now that you're starting to see some very high level elite fit people that they're incredibly fit, incredibly strong. They might not have the experience, but they have the
Hmm.
tenacity and the physical strength to do it.
Yeah, exactly. There's a few pieces of the puzzle that you need, and if you've got a 2 out of 3, you can usually get it done, right? If you've got
Yeah,
those two for sure.
it just
Um,
seems to be more of a people are focusing more on nutrition and health and fitness than they were 20 years ago. It wasn't really not nobody really paid much attention to that. You'd see
yeah,
guys out hiking in mud boots and or rolled down or cowboy boots up in the mountains. You don't you see people pretty technical gear now.
yeah. Oh yeah, it's so I was going to get to that actually. That was one of my questions. It's you know, in your YouTube film there, your your uh, your movie basically depicts like a real traditional old school sheep hunt, right? Like you guys did it the old school way. I'm sure you had some modern gear. It looked like there was some of it, but I mean, you guys were living off the land. You were foraging. You were just going at your own pace. Were all of those old school hunts like that? Same sort of program.
Well, they were a lot longer style hunts than what you see nowadays. You're pretty much limited to the physical ability of your horses. So, you're not
Mm-hmm.
able to go day in and day out, day after day, covering long distances unless your horses are in, really good physical shape. So you have to stop and give them a break, let them graze, and then as you get farther on in the year, that complicates compounds because the protein in the grass drops and feed
Mm-hmm.
gets less nutritious for the animals, and then it takes a bigger toll on them, and then you start getting into colder weather and you get into rain and sleet and snow. I think I did some research on when we were in there the last part of the hunt. We were down to between 0 and -5 conditions with heavy rain and sleet and snow, and they the horses were needing 20-30,000 calories a day just to maintain their body weight. There's no possible way they could get that.
Yeah, can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the game, the deeper you got into a hunt later in the season, the more it changed from the horses working for you to you working for the horses almost, right?
Yeah, the last part of the hunt definitely was that. We had
Mm-hmm.
weather, had high rivers, and definitely food was slimming down. But we spent a lot of time, you know, kind of adding to our food supply whenever we could. We picked a lot of mushrooms and hunted
Mm-hmm.
grouse when we were able to, and caught fish and picked a lot of berries.
Yeah,
You know,
no, that
we
was a fascinating part of the whole show.
we just didn't have any kind of schedule. So for us, some days we were like, oh, let's go over here, let's go up there. We always wanted to go see this. Let's hang out here for today.
Mm-hmm.
And
So I have a question for you, Shane. So obviously, this was a snapshot of your life with your dad, and not the first time you guys had done this. So what inspired you to film it?
well, my dad has always been a really integral part of my life. He's been an incredible role model. He's very high morals, very good ethics, good person, good hearted, generous, kind, still married. My mom and he are still married. They're best friends. And he spent his entire life taking care of me when I needed help. And
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to create a monument for him, you know, because he's not going to be here forever. And I wanted to do something to um, basically honor him for everything that he'd done for me and share who he was with the world, and my love for him and, my gratitude and dedication to trying to put that into some sort of visual or an audio context for people.
Right on. Yeah, this is funny because I'm going to read you a sort of a statement that I have. I was going to ask you in this sort of segment of the interview, and this is I'll just read it right off because you almost said it perfectly. It said, "I'm sure people have told you this, but it's so much more than a hunting film. It's about the bond between a father and a son, and the connection the sheep hunters have with the backcountry and the adventure that is sheep hunting." That's what I was going to basically say to you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
before we jump ahead here, Blake, we're having some audio issues. Is there something you suggest we try?
Yeah, Shane, I don't know if anyone in the chat is getting it, but I think there's some audio coming through possibly your phone. Are you just on speaker on your phone right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have any headphones or anything?
I do not.
Okay. Is it sitting on a table or something at the moment?
I just have it in my hand.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if there was an echo or something coming through. There might
Well,
not be much we can do about it then. I think it's just the audio coming out of the speaker, unless I don't know if it can be turned down on your phone a bit or something. But
Does that help?
let's
Well,
see.
I
It
think,
only comes through when Chuck's talking. It seems like
yeah, let me try. Is
it
that
comes.
better? That sounds better already. I don't hear the feedback.
I think so far it's better. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
sounds
Okay.
good.
Let's try. Let's
You-
try for 4 minutes and see how we do. Thanks.
yeah. These are the fun parts of doing live stuff. Okay, we got our audio fixed. Let's get back to the good stuff here. So another little quick question on the film then. What was that like trying to? I think it was obviously your first experience filming and hunting and running horses, having fun with your dad. That must have been just a handful for you.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I have a tremendous amount of footage from that trip. There's a lot of really good stuff still that we have talked about doing short edits of and things like that. But it's really challenging to condense it into like a 30 or 40 minute,
Mhm.
thing that stays interesting and isn't kind of similar to what everything else is. We're trying to do something a little bit different. So
Mhm. Yeah, you did. You achieved it for sure, my friend. How'd you get the like the post production? Did you do all that yourself too, or did somebody help you with that?
I worked with Richie Casement. He's
Nice.
the do you know who he is? He's the
He's Cody's guy, right, Richie?
cameraman for Cody Robbins, and
Yeah.
I'm friends with Cody. And I was telling Cody what I was doing, and he's like, "Hey man, Richie will do anything you need to do to help edit it." And he graciously offered Richie's services,
Hmm.
and I worked with Richie, and I worked together to kind of fine tune it and figure out how we wanted it to look and all that kind of thing, and do all the sound editing and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
it was definitely, that part of it was very interesting. Um, I'd been involved in some film work before that, behind the scenes stuff. Not filming myself, but paying attention to what was going on and learning. I'd been on a trip with Cody before and kind of asked a lot of questions, and because it was something I had in the back of my mind to do, and I just didn't know how to go about doing it. I certainly didn't have the best equipment to do it, but it seemed to have turned out pretty well.
Yeah, it sure did. I mean, it's funny. Wasey and I were chatting the other day. Wasey says he watches it like every couple weeks. And it's
What's funny is right at the last part of the hunt. I don't use the camera anymore. It's some kind of a little Sony waterproof thing, but we were crossing the Prophet the last day or two of the trip, and I went out on the gravel bar. I mean, this gravel bar is immense. It's like a half a mile across and nothing
yeah,
on it anywhere. And I went out and I found a flat rock. I set the camera on it and left it on record while we were crossing the horses across. And one of the pack horses went across all the way across that rocky, flat river gravel bar and stepped on the camera.
of course he did. He probably had enough of the camera. It's like, I'm gonna crush this thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. A nice way to end it. I think it's one of my favorite parts of the show too. I mean, I loved it all, and I'm guilty for watching it too. Is those last few minutes of the show when the truck was dying. So
Oh, I know.
yeah, I was laughing. I said to somebody I was chatting about it maybe today or yesterday. I said, that truck was one step away from that show being called the 40-day sheep hunt, right?
Oh, I know. Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody kind of came in on fumes.
Yeah.
My old man showed up at the front door, and my mom's like, "What did you do to him? He looks like he's been starved to death." He was in good shape, fit. He lost almost 40 pounds.
Yeah, yeah, he
The
looked
horse,
like it by the end of the trip there for sure.
yeah, the horses looked like Comanche war ponies, but when they were in the yard, they were all muscled up and tight and covered in mud and beat up and tired.
Yeah.
I think I lost
Well,
almost 30 pounds. So
it's crazy, hey, what the
yeah,
body goes through.
yeah, and I mean, we had a very high caloric diet too. Like we carried a lot of pemmican with us, and
Hmm.
high fat diet, high protein. So,
Yeah, for
but
sure. Right on. Well, again, congratulations on it. Like, just an amazing show. I know it's been a few years since you released it, and if
yeah, thank you.
you ever get another one out there, I'm sure you'll have lots of people wanting to see it. So,
Yeah,
um,
we do have a lot more footage that we've been kind of keeping, and we're just kind of trying to figure out how to put it together
Yeah.
and release it. We have a lot of Asian stuff coming, a lot of Mexico stuff, and
All right on.
so we're going to be working on that in the near future here. We've got some plans in place.
Oh, awesome. Before we move out of sheep hunting in BC, I have a couple things I wanted to pick your brain on. Um, I know I heard that you were at one of the horn aging seminars here in the last week or so, right? You were
Yeah,
participating in one.
yeah.
Well, question for you then. Given your experience and being around sheep all your life, if you were teaching someone how to age sheep, what would your approach be as far as what you would kind of give them for tips and mindset in aging sheep?
Oh, the first thing that I would tell anybody to do when they're looking at sheep is to forget about the horns and look at body structure. Body structure tells you everything you need to know about a ram. Mature rams have a very distinct physical appearance. Intermediate, young to mid adult to right in the prime of their life have a very kind of a distinct look, and the young ones are very distinct too. So once you get used to kind of determining what they look like based on body structure, you can really pick apart the kind of the hierarchy of a herd based on age, just looking at the physical attributes.
Yeah.
You're never gonna see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old ram. It's very rare you'll see one with a Roman nose. That comes from repeated tremendous impacts on the nasal bridge,
Yeah.
buildup of scar tissue over time. A lot of the desert sheep we see, they're 8 to 10 years, 10+ years old. The skin isn't even connected to their nasal bridge anymore. There's so
Mm,
much scar tissue in there, and there's air pockets where it's not even connected to the skull of the animal anymore.
wow.
But also, this what their body shape looks like, size comparison, what's the body size look like. Older mature rams are going to have, 10 to 15% more body mass than younger rams.
Hmm.
They're going to look blockier. They're going to have a hump on their shoulder. They're going to be sway back, pot bellied, and they're going to
Hmm.
be heftier, thicker looking. You know, the way they interact with each other will give you clues about, who's dominant, and you'll see. I've seen it 1,000 times where the oldest dominant ram will go over and kick a young ram out of the best bed on the hillside and
Yeah.
steal it from him. It happens all the time. You don't usually see young rams chasing older rams out of the bed. They'll get up and
Yeah.
want to punch them when.
Yeah. Exactly. It's interesting. I one of the first sheep hunts. I've only been sheep hunting now for like 6 years or so, and the first really good sheep hunt that I went on, we got into a valley that had rams everywhere. We had 4 or 5 different groups of rams. There was a total of 36 rams in that valley over the course of like 3 days, and we got to watch them. And some of the things that the boss rams of each group would do were pretty unique, like just randomly walk up and kick another ram in the nuts for no reason.
Yeah, and
Going,
they do it. It's just kind of a way of saying, "Hey, I'm in charge."
yeah, just to remind them.
It's all dominant. There's definitely a hierarchy in every herd. You if you spend enough time watching, you'll see who's running the show, who isn't, and
Yeah,
it's pretty rare that you'll see a group of rams leave following a younger ram if something happens, unless it's something really blatant and everybody knows it's time to go.
yeah, something's chasing them or whatever.
Yeah, or they're nervous about something or whatever. Their body. There's a lot of physical cues that'll tell you kind of how they're behaving.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, it's all good points, and I think people get fixated on um, horns first, right? And I think I agree with you. I think you got to look at, first of all, establish who's the big boy in the group, and then work your
Yeah,
way down the checklist from there. So that's
yeah.
very good
I've
points. Think,
there's been tons of times where I've looked at rams across the valley, and I'll look at them all and I'll be like, yeah, there's no point in going to look at those. I know for sure there's if there is anything, it's going to be average or less than average size. But
hmm
when you when you see a big shooter ram, it's just like seeing a 200-inch muley, like you don't have to talk yourself into like, is this thing legal, or that you're going to start slinging lead at it. You don't count rings, that's a ram to kill, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. No, good advice. And, all the really experienced sheep hunters that we talk to say exactly those things. So yeah, it's
And
definitely the way to approach it.
the other thing too is that, if you're going to be aging a sheep based on annuli, you need to get close, like way closer than you should think you should, and you run the risk of bumping the sheep. But I mean, if you're going to be aging a sheep, you're going to be taking that chance, then you need to get, 200 or 300 yards and max, even closer,
Hmm.
and get in there and see what you're looking at, and take the time, and don't get in a rush. A lot of
Yeah.
guys try and really pick apart the bottom, I would say the bottom half of the horn curl. When you see a ram that's 6 or 7, 8 years old, 7-year old rams are great for this, because you'll see people trying to make another ring out of that, and they're trying to make this ram 8 years old. It's might not quite be a full curl, or just barely a full curl. And the easiest way to determine if that ram's going to be old enough is to look at the fourth annulus on the horn.
Hmm.
You draw a horizontal line right through the horn, level with the head, and you look at where that fourth annulus is. Is it perpendicular with that horizontal line? Is it tipped up? Is it tipped down below it? If you have a fourth year annulus that's tipped up on that horizontal plane, that ram's not going to be old enough. I guarantee you.
Hmm.
I've yet to see a ram that makes 8 years old with his fourth annuli above that horizontal plane.
Yeah.
But
Good point.
anytime you see that fourth annuli down level with that horizontal plane or below, then you're looking at a mature ram, and then you need to start looking closer. But if that fourth annulus is tipped up on that horizontal plane, you're you're wasting your time, in my opinion. It's too young, it's too small, all the above.
Yeah, and I think that's a great methodology, and it has been talked about before, and I think that there's been a mistake or two made, many, probably more than two, where people use that methodology and say, "Oh, if it's on the lower side, then he's for sure legal." Well, that's not. That's just one of the indicators that he might be legal, right? And I think that's the difference maker.
Yeah, and I've
So,
I've seen some very prominent sheep hunters and some very um, famous social media guides that have killed young stone sheep, much
hmm.
younger than they should be killing, and publicized it and made a big deal about it and made congratulated over it. And I personally frown on that. I
Yeah,
think that, especially if you're a guide and it's your profession, you should know better.
yeah, good point. And I think the last thing I would add to that is I think a lot of people get in trouble by assuming that there's another annuli in the hair,
Yeah.
right?
Well, if you look at a horn from the side, and there's going to be a small section of that horn that's going to be discolored from the oil in the hair,
Hmm.
whatever growing out of the head. If I have yet to see an annuli in that discolored part of that horn,
Mm,
and I've looked over, I don't even know how many thousands of rams in my life already. There just isn't a ring, or there isn't an annulus in that discolored part of that hair. So, if you get to 7 rings and you see that dark part of the horn going into the head, you could pretty much be guaranteed there isn't going to be an annulus there. And
right.
move on, look somewhere else. I mean, 35 years ago when I was looking at sheep, it was nothing to see 5 or 6 mature rams in a group pretty
Hmm.
regularly where it went. I It's been years since I've seen that many mature rams in a group in BC. I've maybe 1, 2 max,
Hmm.
sometimes none.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, oftentimes none. Oftentimes a lot of intermediate, middle-aged rams, or
Hmm.
maybe not middle-aged, but just barely mature sheep.
Yeah. Just on the doorstep of maturity.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's times when I've gone in the mountains and I've seen, a dozen or 15 rams over the course of the hunt that were all, 34 to 36 inch curls, 32 to 36 inch curls, mid 150s rams. Some of them 10 plus, but never going to amount to anything as a sheep, just,
Yeah.
A full curl broomed off ram, light, not a lot of mass, but those are great sheep to hunt and kill,
Mm-hmm.
they're really not going to amount to anything. They're already kind of at the end of their life cycle. They're not participating in the rut as voraciously as the other sheep are, and definitely a great sheep to target.
Yeah, and that's I think that's where we as hunters can do a better job in making that selection, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Blake and I have yet to put a tag on a ram, but we've certainly passed on them for all of those reasons that you mentioned. The squeaker, the doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Didn't want to shoot on age. I just don't think it's a personal opinion, but I just don't think a new to moderately experienced sheep hunter should be shooting on age. I just don't think so. I think you've got to
Yeah.
have a few rams under your belt just to make that
I have
decision, right? It's important.
I have people every year that call me up in the mountains. They're looking at a ram through the scope and send me a picture. Is this ram
Yeah.
legal? Is this legal? And they aren't legal, but at
Hmm.
least they're aware of looking for help. There's options out there.
Yeah, exactly.
When it's available. It's good to see
Yeah.
people taking that time and effort to make sure they're making the right decisions.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I mean, we're kind of at a point right now where our immature harvest is increasing.
Hmm.
Our age class is decreasing. Our our population is 100% decreasing,
Hmm.
and with native interests in hunting in northeastern BC, hunting opportunities are going to decrease because they're looking very closely at buying the territories and keeping them as traditional or their use. And I think if residents don't really make an attempt to change things, there's going to be changes made without us being involved in them.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the other side of that too is it's on us to not make mistakes because our mistakes compound that problem and give them more evidence and more,
Yeah.
easy reasons to take things away from us. This is what's happened with grizzly bears, right? I mean,
Yeah.
very
Well,
similar.
that's
That's
kind of
the
the great thing about the sheep community is that, very proactive, very conservation minded group,
Mhm.
arguably maybe the best one in the world now as it stands.
Yeah.
Um, they're reaching all over Asia and everywhere where there's wild sheep, North America,
Hmm.
what Eastern Russia, and um, at the end of the day, if we're seen as proactive and basically turning around these statistics, it's gonna catch the eye of the people that are making the decisions for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, and honestly, you know, the, I guess the stakeholders in the sheep hunting world and in the hunting world need to be on the same page, right? Like we all need to be pointed in the same direction. The groups that are anti-hunters or want to take away those rights, whether it's government or public interest or whatever you want to call it, they're a lot more established than we are as a group. And honestly, Blake and I talked about this, about how can we at least do something and help provide a place where everybody can at least get together, talk about this, and point us in the right direction. And that's one of our missions for sure.
Hmm. Well, I mean, Wild Sheep, you can't argue with the success of that organization. It's
Nope.
smashingly successful, all the way across the board, and it's
Yeah,
impossible to ignore what they're doing.
it really is. We were, I mentioned this on last night's show. Blake and I were invited to the Wild Sheep Foundation chapter and affiliate summit a few weeks ago in Calgary. And we attended the weekend with those guys, and it was all the executives from all of those chapters. And we toured around some of the areas where Alberta in particular had been doing some work and all the effort and energy and how they handle things out there. And it's like just hats off to those organizations. We've got to support them. We've got to throw money at them when we can. We've got to give them a voice when we can, and they are the backbone. That organization in particular is, like you said, just reaches so far, and they're so good at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. Well, let's stay out of the political rabbit hole and talk sheep hunting. That's what we're here for. Um, so back to sheep hunting. All these years, of sheep hunting under your belt in BC. What's your approach to finding ram? You mentioned or finding rams. You mentioned covering a lot of ground. So that kind of leads a few. I'm assuming because you're on horseback, you do a lot of glassing from the bottom first. Is that sort of the plan, or are you trying to get camped and take a chance and climb mountains when you're out with the horses? How do you run that?
I've very rarely ever climbed a mountain just on a chance. Like I can remember probably most of the times that I've done it, and predominantly you come up empty-handed. It's pretty rare that you climb up over a mountain and go, oh, there they all are.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I've done it so many times where you're thinking, oh, they got to be here. This is a perfect spot. But if you look at how wide ranging and how dispersed they are and how few there of them there really is, I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, until you learn all their little hideouts that they have, and they definitely frequent those. They habitually go to those.
Hmm.
Until you have a pretty good inventory of ram hangouts, it takes a lot of time and effort. I think what is the average hunter spends 7 years before they get a ram. Is
Yeah,
that
something like that.
something
Yeah.
like that? Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of very avid sheep hunters that have yet to harvest a sheep or have only maybe gotten one. They put a lot of miles on. They go on these giant epic backpacking trips and get on ridges and walk and hike and go over mountains. And
Hmm.
I have a lot of admiration for their ability, but it's definitely a low percentage chance, unless you know where they are.
Yeah.
I mean, there's places that I can think of where I've seen rams year after year for decades, and they're always going to be there. They might not be there that day that you're there, but if you have the
Hmm.
time and the resources, you can sit there and wait, and they'll show up there eventually. They always do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it's year number 7 for me, so
it's, it's your time.
it's got to be sooner or later, buddy, 'cause the clock's ticking.
Yeah, man.
Well, that's right on. Well, last thing I want to ask you on stone sheep hunting in particular, and then we're going to jump and head south here. What's your best piece of advice for, I was going to say new sheep hunters, but sheep hunters in BC today? What would be your best piece of advice for them?
As far as
Finding rams, being successful, I guess. And you could blanket this, cover it any way you want.
well, I think the first thing that I would do is, I mean, sheep hunters are very, you know, finicky. Some are very secretive, and there was a time when I was very, very close, held the information I knew very close to my chest, and
Hmm.
didn't share it with anybody. But back in the day, there was some older friends of my dad's that had been going in the mountains hunting sheep for years and years, and a lot of them, I think most of them now aren't even with us anymore, but they were all to a T, every one of them. If you sat down with them and said, "Hey, I want to go find a ram, where would be a good place to go?" They would tell you anything you wanted to know about anywhere you
Hmm.
wanted to go. They were all about, getting residents out hunting. They were involved in the BC Wildlife Federation. They were right at the forefront of things when there was allocation issues between residents and guides, and they were really helpful and really informative, and they wanted to see more people out hunting, and that I kind of
Hmm.
swung around to that point of view. I've helped a lot of people and given a lot of people my advice and my tips and what
Hmm.
knowledge I've learned, and hoping that it might help them. So I think I would tell people that are interested in it to start talking to people. There's plenty of resources. There's forums. There's podcasts. There's people that have been there and done it, and start learning about what you're wanting to go do. Start learning about the sheep. Learn about their habitat. Learn about their behavior. become an expert on them, and all those things are going to help you be successful. You'll look up into a valley and you go, oh, that's a nice, beautiful valley, but it doesn't look like a place where rams would hang out. It doesn't have the things that I'm used to seeing where rams like to habituate. So
Yeah.
that might be okay, but I don't see anything there. It doesn't look that great to me. I want to move on, that kind of thing. So I think resources are probably a person's best bet in being successful,
Yeah, I would agree, and that's very well said. And I can tell you, we've experienced some pretty good fortune in that regard with some people we've gotten to know over the years, and I think a lot of it comes from the delivery on the person that wants the information too. Like, you don't just waltz on. Like, you see guys jump on. You get this every year when our LEH draws come out, and guys will, they'll pick an area and they'll do a draw and then they'll jump on a forum. Or we haven't seen it here at Spike Camp because I think our platform's a little different, but I've seen it a lot where they jump on and the first thing they do is ask for help,
Yeah.
and like, good luck.
That's kind
You're
of
going to
like
get
going on.
flamed.
So you don't start out your date by asking a girl how much she weighs, right?
37 years of marriage, buddy, sitting over here. I don't think those words have ever slipped out of my mouth, and they never will.
There you go. So there's always the delivery, right? So
There's the delivery, and I think if you're honest and true to yourself and true to the the reason that you're asking or the person that you're asking, you'll get a lot. And there's a lot of people. We found one of the fun parts about our platform is we have sort of an unwritten no bullshit policy, right? Like, treat people with respect. If you want to be on here, you're going to be respectful.
yeah,
And we haven't had any issues. And there's information sharing happening every day, all throughout the day on here, and that's what we just love to see it. And like I said, we've been lucky enough. We've gotten some tips from a couple good buddies that have helped us, even in an area like, without giving too much away. We're working on establishing our own areas, and where people are finding out that through communication with us where we've been, and they're helping us. They're offering us more tips about, oh, I know that spot, this spot. If you're nice and respectful, you'll get a lot. You'll get a lot of info. So that's
I like
really
to
good
see
stuff.
I like to see young guys out going out and hunting too. And I'm always trying to be helpful to them and
Yeah.
steer them in the right direction. I've been chastised by a lot of outfitters for being a little more open than I should, but
Mhm.
it's no secret where they're hunting. I've hunted through all of their areas. Some of them, I've had clients that want me to go with them, and they're like, we're not going to let that guy go in there. And I'm like, hey guys, I've been there and done it. I've been all through where you hunt. I know it all. I've killed sheep in there. I just, you're not hiding anything. It's
Yeah.
better to, I've always found it's better to put your best foot forward and, be helpful.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, there's a bunch of people that I've helped out and sent them in the right direction, and they still haven't seen anything. So
Hmm.
it's whether just because that sheep have been there doesn't mean they're going to be there. There's a whole nother talking point about looking for them and spending time, and there's definitely an act of finding them. And
Yeah.
I had sitting with my daughter looking at some rams one time, and these guys came riding up. It was on a 4-wheeler trail, and I was looking at a legal ram up on the hillside. It was like a 36-inch ram, I think it was an 8 or 9-year-old sheep, nothing big. And we were passing on it, and these guys came up to us, like, hey, how you doing? They're really friendly. Oh, we're heading up this way looking for rams. Sure isn't any around, we haven't seen anything. And I'm like, well, you just got to keep looking, and they gathered up their stuff and kept on going and drove right by these 3 rams that were up there on the hillside. So it's just, it takes time and experience, and
Yeah.
all those kind of come together
Yeah, for
eventually.
sure.
Yeah.
No, that's good stuff. I'm glad you said it that way, because that's I think it's a really important thing for sure. So, all right, well, let's head south. I want to talk to you about desert sheep. I'm fascinated with that whole thing. So, I guess first off, we're going to circle back a little bit later and we'll talk about your operation. But as far as the sheep themselves go and the sheep hunts, what are apart from obviously where you're at, what are the main differences between a desert sheep hunt and any other sheep hunt, if there is any differences as far as North
Well,
American sheep go?
the biggest difference with desert sheep is obviously their habitat is substantially different. You're dealing
Hmm.
not with the elements. You're dealing basically with one element. It's heat, right? Exposure.
Yeah.
So um, there's no water there other than what might be supplied on ranches. So there might be the odd water hole or stone pool or whatever, but predominantly the sheep don't habituate those. They don't need the water. They get it from the food that they eat. I've watched them smash into saguaro cactuses and lick the water coming out of them. I've seen them break barrel cactuses in half and eat the middles out of them,
Hmm.
or feed early in the morning when there's dew on the trees or whatever. But um, there's just as far as differences, the habitat's a big one. You see them habituate north facing slopes because that's where the shade is and that's where the vegetation grows the best. The
Hmm.
sunny side of the hillsides where we live are usually the best side because that's where all the grass grows. Down there, the sunny side gets blasted with heat and gets burned off. So
Okay.
it's while they are out there, they're predominantly on the north facing sides of the mountains. That's where they like to go and hide out, get in the shade and feed on
Hmm.
the vegetation. They get it right underneath the trees sometimes and don't leave them. They just eat the leaves and then lay down in the shade and then get up and eat some more and lay down, and you might never see them until a horn pokes out for a minute and then they're back in.
Right.
So that's one big difference. The other difference is obviously in the summertime. That's the most extreme season of the year in the desert. That's when the sheep form their annulus is in the summertime. So
Okay.
they become less active. They're stressed from the heat. They're trying to stay cool. So they don't move a lot. They don't feed a lot. They just kind of hunker down and wait for the wait for the heat to kind of lessen off. But I mean, 100 degrees to them is no big deal. But when it gets in
Yeah.
the 110s, 120s, then they really start to struggle.
So, what's your hunting season date range then for deserts? When do you guys hunt them?
December to March.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a couple of places where they have earlier seasons, like private ranches and stuff. They have these like free range areas, but those are all based on population, and they have to have variances from Sagarpa
Hmm.
to get those clearances. But basically December, we kind of operate from December to March. That's
Okay.
usually when they like to go down.
Okay. So that's the main differences. What are the similarities in hunting deserts during your season versus hunting somewhere anywhere else in North America, as far
Um,
as the sheep patterns and stuff?
Same thing. You're gonna look at body structure when you see rams. They're they have the same characteristics as the sheep where we are. The only difference is that it's easier to see the variations in their body stature because they have such small hair
Yeah.
coats.
Short. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean even in the coolest part of the season, they have a very thin coating of hair on them, and there's skin and hair is very very smooth. Whereas the stone sheep in late October gets pretty blocky looking. They get
Hmm.
3 or 4 inches of hair on them and start to look pretty puffy
Start.
and pretty.
Yeah. Exactly.
And
Um,
it seems like down there more often than not, the older rams really smash their noses up, so you get the predominantly Roman nose looking at
mhm.
rams that are older.
Okay. So, during the season, then, when is the rut for the deserts? When does
That
that
seems to
happen?
be to me. It kind of changes based on different areas. It's earlier in some parts of the state, and some places it's different. It kind of varies. So there's really no way to say exactly when it is, but
Mm,
it just basically depends on what kind of food source they have, what kind of stresses they have, what the temperature's like.
okay.
It's hotter and drier towards the ocean than it is inland more. If you go into central Sonora, it's higher up and cooler, so it's kind of all over the map with them.
Right on. And then, do you tend to see rams that you wouldn't normally see during the rut, like you would here in BC? The timber rams, and case in point, they come out and people haven't seen them or whatever. Do you run into that sort of thing down there?
Yeah, well, I've found the majority of the really big rams seem to get down low. Like you wouldn't think that they would,
Mhm.
but I've seen some really big rams right down on flats right beside the ocean where they come off the mountains and just lay right down and stay down in the
Mhm.
low. Um, they've I've seen them kind of really in places that you wouldn't expect big rams to be. It seems like the bigger rams don't like to climb into the really high stuff. So
Okay.
predominantly, I'm always looking in the bottom third, bottom quarter of the mountain for rams before I start looking up on the higher parts.
Mhm. So what's a typical day? Whoop, you lose them? There you go. You're back. I can't hear you, Shane. Must be muted.
The rams kind of. Oh, sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, got you back now. Yeah.
Yeah, good now.
Yeah, it seems like predominantly the older rams like the lower foothills, lower bottom sweeping creeks and crevices and ravines.
Mhm.
But I mean, every once in a while you'll see them up higher, but predominantly they're down pretty low.
Mhm. So what does a typical day on a desert sheep hunt look like? Like how do you play that out?
We have a wide, if we can go from Tiburon where you get up in the morning and you're walking all day to you know to some of the ranches we hunt that are pretty fancy where you get up and fancy dinner, fancy breakfast, and
Mhm.
but almost predominantly always a lot of glassing, a lot of looking. They're right on par with stone sheep for difficulty and being able to see them. Visibility is really hard.
For sure.
They blend in really good with their surroundings. You're looking at a small white rump on them.
Mhm.
That's pretty much the only feature of them that will stand out. Sometimes the horns, but predominantly in Sonora, they're really dark. There's a tree called a torote that kind of bleeds with a red pitch, and they really like to eat it and rub on it. So as a
Mm.
consequence, they have really dark horns compared to
Mm.
compared to other areas. If you see a big desert sheep from Mexico and it's got yellow horns, you can pretty much guarantee it's been a high fence round.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting. Um, I'm assuming just picking them out, glassing would be probably the biggest challenge, right? In hunting them,
yeah.
just finding.
It's a lot of looking, and high magnification. I use like 15s for looking. It's
Mhm.
just on a tripod. Seems to work the best. A little heavier, not as sleek to carry, but so much better for picking apart the little tiny spots and crevices. And it's a lot of it's far thicker than you would think. So
Yeah. I mean, just if you spent any time in desert country, it's just amazing how there's so much in the terrain that is just
yeah.
so much there. It's so busy. I can imagine it's just crazy to try to find them. So.
Yeah, and I mean, every time I climb up on a mountain, there's always spots that you would never expect sheep to be laying, and they little crevices, little nooks and crannies, hiding spots,
Hmm.
shady little holes that they find that you could
Hmm.
never see them from unless you're right on top of them. So
Yeah.
it's just like any other sheep hunting, other than maybe doll sheep hunting. But it's you sit down and look some more, and then when you're done looking, keep looking.
Yeah. When you're done looking, keep looking. Yeah,
Yeah, some
exactly.
of the biggest rams that I've ever messed up on as a young man hunting were all from not spending enough time sitting there looking and jumping sheep that, you know, a, a few really big ones, like massive sheep,
Wow.
that I would love to go back and try again.
Yeah, the heartbreakers, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Blake, you wanted to pull a question?
Yeah, I saw Clay Weber. He was asking a question for you, Shane. He was wondering, how are the sheep managed, the desert sheep managed down in Mexico? Are biologists monitoring their populations and stuff, or what's the situation?
Yeah, well, in Mexico, like almost all the land's private, so there's almost non-existent public land for hunting. So any wildlife that's on your land is your property. And if you want to hunt it, then you have to go and petition Sigarpa, which is the Mexican Fish and Wildlife, and you have to get a census done. And then the census will determine what kind of tags you're allocated. And then if you're running a high fence operation where you're raising animals and reintroducing them, there's a whole program where you have to quarantine them and document what you're releasing, and then based on what you release or enter into the wild, you get tags based on that too. So really, in the grand scheme of things, Sonora's been a raging success as far as bringing desert sheep from the brink of extinction back to they're on the verge now of taking them off of CITES because of the success.
Mm, wow,
Wildly
that's
successful.
wildly successful. That's
Yeah.
interesting. You know, I spoke about this a couple times on our show, and I just got back from South Africa, and their game management's similar to that in that it's almost all private land. At least where we were, there is some government land, but what
Mhm.
my takeaway was that because these landowners tend to own the animal, they're they have a lot more of a responsibility to keep the population healthy, and they do a lot of behind the scenes things, and it just seems to be I mean, I don't know if a better way, but it's certainly a good way for sure. And I think it sounds like Mexico is the same.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of places that kind of control their hunting, and it's not. It wouldn't be like a. They're certified free range, and
Hmm.
we stick to those ranches. But with that being said, there are some areas of Sonora that are definitely wild
Hmm.
sheep. Full on expedition style hunting. The island is one of those places.
Hmm.
It's a it's a beautiful, it's a desert paradise, but it's also logistically a nightmare. You have to take everything you need over with you and take it away when you're done.
Hmm.
Every cup of water, all the toilet paper you need, all the food, all the everything, gasoline, vehicles, tents. So
Wow.
it's by no means easy, but there's nowhere that I know where you can go out and hunt and see hundreds of rams in a week or two.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it sounds like a challenge. It sounds amazing, by the way. The any stories I've ever heard of it just sounds like just an incredible place. So maybe
Yeah,
one day.
it's definitely an amazing place. There's a lot of 180s thrown around on that island. I got a
Hmm.
180 this, I got a 180 that, but to hit that 180 mark, that's a big number
Yep.
a Jeep. If you're looking at percentage of the record book, it's in the top. I don't know, would be top 5% of the book.
Hmm.
The entry level for desert sheep is 168, and people throw that 180 mark around a lot down there, kind of being the benchmark for a big ram, and that's a tremendous sheep.
Yeah, it sounds unbelievable. On
Yeah.
that note, one of our members, Sheldon, has just asked a question. Is there a reason why the big desert rams look way more massive than bighorns? What would be the reason that they have that perspective?
Well, it all has to do with body size versus horn size. The horns are similar in size, all across the North America.
Hmm.
They're similar. They're not a lot bigger. They're not a lot smaller, but there's a definite variation in body size. I've hunted on the breaks in Montana where you see rams that top 300 pounds, 350 pounds on the hoof. Their horns are bigger. Their heads are bigger. A head and a full life size cape of a bighorn like that is 100 pounds, and you just don't
Wow.
see that. A desert
Hmm.
sheep is probably a third smaller than a bighorn body size wise. They're
Yeah.
not much bigger than a stone sheep.
Hmm. It's kind of like
Some,
the
some,
Texas
some.
whitetail versus Alberta.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're usually they're not as blocky, not as heavy. I mean, they definitely aren't as big as kind of the north central Bighorns, northwestern Bighorns by any
Hmm.
means. But as a consequence, because they're they have a lighter coating of hair on them. Their hair is thinner and lighter. They look thinner and more agile looking, and as a consequence, the horns look a lot bigger. But also you have to understand too. There's a lot of big desert sheep being killed, so 167, 168-inch ram doesn't look that big, and that's a Boone and Crockett sheep, right?
Yeah.
So when you start
Wow.
seeing 170, 175, 180, those are really, really big sheep for desert sheep.
Yeah. Oh man, I can only dream. Sounds unbelievable. All right. Well, I want to switch gears just slightly and stay on the topic of deserts, but you know, we always kind of this gets tossed around a lot in conversation up here, especially in BC. We talk about our $40 sheep tag versus $100,000 non-resident outfitted hunt, and the same can almost apply for us dreaming about a desert sheep hunt, right? There's no cheap way to do it if you're
No,
living anywhere but there. So you're pursuing you're say you're in the situation where you can afford a desert sheep hunt and you want to lay down that coin. What is when choosing an outfitter? What are first of all, what questions would you recommend someone ask the outfitter, and what are some of the red flags to look for?
well, number one is price. If you find a good deal on a sheep hunt down there, there's a reason for it. It means you're going to be hunting a small ram. You're going to be hunting in an area with a transient population or very few sheep. And also, criminal activity is a big thing to keep in the back of your mind there. There are a
Hmm.
lot of areas in Sonora that are no-go areas for me. I don't go there because it's not safe.
Right.
Um, it's just like there's tons of places in the United States that aren't safe. Like you don't go down to the Bronx and say, "Hey, I want a hot dog." It's just not a good place to go find something to eat. There's
Not
better
the
safe
best.
places to eat, right?
Yeah.
Or anywhere else. There's places in Vancouver that are you don't go down to Robson Street for any afternoon stroll, right? It's not fun. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
Or anywhere else that you want to go, Chicago, anywhere.
Hmm.
There's good and bad spots to go, and just like everywhere else, you need to do your homework. If you're going to be going down there and you're going to be putting that kind of money out, you need to start asking questions like, okay, what area am I going? What kind of harvest has happened there? Like, what are how many, look at the mountain range, look at the size of the ranches, look at, is anybody else hunted there? There's other people that have been going down there, and do they have problems exporting? I run into people that have all kinds of problems with their outfitters exporting their trophies. I've helped people get their sheep out of Mexico, help them get sheep out from some very prominent outfitters, in fact, that just, aren't finishing the job. Logistically, your hunt goes from start to finish. You take a guy down there, you meet him at the airport, you accompany him, you make sure he's going to the right area, gets a
Hmm.
great sheep, and then the hunt doesn't just stop there. You have to make sure that the hide's taken care of and goes to a reputable taxidermist, that the CITES is taken care of. You have to have the gun permits in order. All of those
Hmm.
things have to be in place for that hunt to run flawlessly and smooth. I've
Yeah.
I've done 38 or 39 hunts down there now, all Boone and
Hmm.
Crockett sheep, and never any issues with export permits ever, not one.
Yeah. I think uh, I've started to dabble in the international hunting over the last couple of years. I've got some plans to do a lot more, and that's the one thing that I've learned is how important everything but the hunt really is as far as the outfitter's job, or
Yeah,
the professional hunter or whoever it is you're dealing with, if it's a booking agent or whatever. It's those little things that can make it or break it, right? And
yeah.
yeah, it's good advice.
Logistics are a huge part of the hunt. I mean, for the hunt to
Yeah.
run flawlessly, I've been in the Hermosillo airport, and I've seen people get arrested for having no gun permits in place. I've had people show up that have decided to go through Mexico City rather than come straight into Sonora. So they get into Mexico City and they don't have a gun permit for that state. So the gun stays and they show up in Sonora and they're like, "Where's my gun?" And it's back where customs has it, or
Yeah.
there's been all kinds of stories of people going and hunting on ranches because tags are allocated specifically to ranches, specifically to the people that are hunting them. So,
Right.
it's got the name of the person, name of the ranch on it. And I've had several people that have ended up on Tiburon Island because they couldn't find a ram on the ranch they were at. And they're like, for another $5,000, take you over there and you can kill one there. And then they don't understand, if you kill a ram off of the ranch where your ram was at, nobody might know about it. But if you import that into the United States, you're guilty of you're violating the Lacey Act. That's a felony. It's jail time, right? And I've seen that happen a bunch of times.
Yeah, that's scary stuff.
I've seen people use high fence tags to take people sheep hunting. I've seen people that have taken people sheep hunting without any tags,
Mm-hmm.
and then hoping that they can buy a high fence tag off of somebody and use that to export it. There's all kinds of those things going on, and all of that comes with, "Hey, I got a good deal,"
Yeah, it starts there, right? It starts with,
I don't.
man, I got a
Yeah,
killer deal.
I don't offer good deals. I really shied away from hunting small sheep. Like I've really focused on higher end trophy quality sheep, high ethics, high integrity, and really tried to, I've had a lot of people turn away and say I can get a better deal, and I'm like, well, okay, or I don't mind shooting a small sheep, and I'm like, okay, well, that's fair. I might not be the right guy for you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Question, I'm just thinking in my head here. Is there an organization that the outfitters down there would have to be a member of, kind of like the GOADC, or is there any kind of protection for the consumer at all as far as, you know,
There's
advocacy or anything?
there's rules in Mexico, but there's not a lot of people able to or willing to or there to enforce them. So it's kind of the
Hmm.
wild west of hunting. So that's why integrity and quality of character comes into play with, who you're hunting with. And I mean, hunting's not a new thing in Sonora, and it's pretty easy to do a little groundwork and see who you're going with and what kind of reputation they have.
Yeah, lots of people do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Um, well, we're gonna switch gears a little bit, and at the end, we're gonna spend some time on you. You can describe and tell us a little bit more about your operation. But one of the things we like to do on these interviews is get into some stories while we have time, and we still have time, right, Blake? How are we doing?
Yeah, we're good. We got lots of time.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to ask you for three little quick stories, if you can. Can you tell us about it might be the one that's in the film, but if that's your favorite northern British Columbia sheep hunt story, then maybe tell us your second favorite northern BC sheep hunt story, if you can, because I bet this one was probably your favorite. But anyway, I'll leave it up to you.
I mean, there's so many. I mean, probably when I started hunting in Mexico, I had a pretty prominent outfitter look at me making a joke, going, "Yeah, we'll make a sheep hunter out of you yet." And I think I'd almost been on 60 resident sheep kills by at that time. And I'm like, I try and be humble because there's always something to learn, right?
Yep,
And
exactly.
I did learn a lot, and I like paying attention and learning. So for me, but I mean, there's so many hunts that we've done in northeastern BC that have been really incredible. Probably, arguably, my favorite sheep hunt would be the one that I did with my brother. We were in 17 or 18 days. Um, we went in with a string of horses, light packs, kind of easy to pick up and move thing with the idea of covering a lot of country. And we did cover a lot of country. We were younger both, and in really good shape, and had a lot of time on our hands, and we'd already frequented that country a lot. And maybe partway through the hunt, we had found a pretty decent ram, a 9-year-old ram that, actually, no, it was an 8-year-old ram that my brother decided to go after. And we hiked up this hillish hillside covered in deadfall and all kinds of crap, and got up to parallel with his sheep, and he made a shot and hit it in the jugular, and it ran straight down the hill towards the horses, 500 or 600 yards, just bleeding like crazy and piled up. And we went and got that ram and got it back to camp, and everything was really good. And then we were kind of in this river valley that we'd been in before, and we're like, hey, let's go over that pass and see what's on the other side of that valley, and see what we can see. So we packed kind of a light fly camp with us. We had a tarp and a little bit of food, and I'd been carrying this pint of Southern Comfort with me. I don't drink,
yeah.
so I don't know why I had it, but and we'd long since run out of whiskey at that time, so I had it in my rain gear and my saddlebag. And we had a few really hairy nights and a rainstorm. And my brother, I kept telling him, he kept saying, hey, I'm saving this for an emergency. And he kept asking me, is this an emergency? Is this an emergency?
It's got to be happening.
Yeah. So we rode up into this valley, and then rode up this big steep hillside up over this pass, thinking, we'd never seen the other side of it. And we weren't exactly sure what it was like or what we were going to see. And we got up on top of this pass, and we could see these two rams off in the distance on this big rocky, kind of a big rock slide hillside, and
Yeah.
You could see that both of the rams were big, but you could see one was substantially bigger than the other one,
Mm-hmm.
And we both had enough experience at that point to know that that was the ram we was going after. So without any camping gear or anything, we dumped off of this mountain, not knowing what it was going to be like over there. Rode up into the bottom of the valley. There's a big, huge basin on top of a mountain with some timber down in it, and got up, maybe 1,000 yards from the ram, and tied up our pack horse and unloaded all the stuff off of him, and then went up with the two saddle horses and got up somewhat underneath them, and then hiked up through all this alpine fir and got right underneath them. And I had a video camera at the time, one of those big yellow Sonys,
Oh
the
yeah. Yeah.
Super 8 or whatever it was. And we belly crawled up underneath this big jumbled giant rock slide, and we couldn't see the sheep, but we knew we were getting close to them. And I peeked over the top of this big rock, and these two rams were like 60 yards from us, and they didn't know we were there. And I was trying to get this video camera to work so my brother could videotape it, and I couldn't get the damn thing to work. There was something wrong with it. And he finally looked at me. He's like, just shoot the ram, And I shot this ram, and it was super close. Just KO'd it. And
Yeah.
when we looked over the rock, you could see how big the sheep was. So we knew it was, definitely worth coming over for. No question when I shot it. And we got up to it, and it was a hell of a sheep, like 176-inch ram, big,
Wow.
heavy duty, super massive, big bodied sheep. And we were just sitting there, and that was like, we'd come so far, and so many things had happened, and it was just very emotional. And my brother just broke down in tears and just
Mm-hmm.
was really overcome with emotion. And we sat there and enjoyed the moment and talked and shared a really great moment together. And it finally got dark, and we boned the sheep out, caped it, and he insisted on carrying it. He wanted to carry the whole thing, and I'm like, you don't have to, and I'm doing it anyway, and we had a hard time even finding our horses because it was getting dark. We found our horses, and I had like one of the best mountain horses a guy could ever hope to have. You know, I had him for 32 years. I
Wow.
literally just dropped the reins in the dark, and he back trailed all the way back in the dark to where our pack horse was, and he stopped in the dark. We turned the light on, and there was all of our stuff and no horse.
Oh shit.
Pack horse wasn't there, so we tied all the stuff on our saddle horses, and then I just turned him loose and kicked him again, and he went walking down all in the dark down through the trees, down into the valley floor, and walked right up to the pack horse in the dark. We turned the lights on, and there's the pack horse standing there. He tracked right down. So we rode down kind of to a cliff edge. There was a big grassy meadow, and set up the tarp and made like a little lean-to kind of thing, lit a fire, and pulled out that pint of Southern Comfort, drank it, and it was just a perfect hunt, and a hell of a sheep, and ended up making our way back out. I think we were 18 days on that trip, and years since I became estranged with my brother. There was a lot of problems, and he's on his own journey now. But yeah, that was probably the best sheep hunt. The one with my dad was amazing, but that was just one for the books for sure.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible story, and as the viewers of your YouTube video, we got to see the emotions, and I talked about this the other night with Wacy and Blake, and you could just tell, like in the case of your dad's sheep, the raw emotion that came out when he shot that ram, and your emotions too. I mean, it's just a culmination of all that stuff, all those years, and the journey that you guys were on, later in life for him. And I can imagine it was the same with your brother, right? Like, I know I haven't killed a ram yet, and I know Blake knows this too. He's like, when I shoot my ram, I don't know if Blake will or not. He probably won't, but I'll probably cry like a baby. I'm pretty
Well,
sure
I
I
mean,
will.
it's everybody, kind of deals with it in a different way. And,
Mhm.
for me, it's the crying part's never been a big part of me, but the emotion, and, I'm very animistic when it comes to living in the wild. I've lived my life in the mountains. I live a little wilder than most people, but there's so many, things that, the hunt kind of reaches a crescendo, and, and you 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 basically get to the point of where everything comes to that last moment, and then there's the destruction of this beautiful creation, and it's over.
Yeah.
And then it's just, there's so many things that come into play to get to that point. I mean, you watch that video of me and my dad, you don't get to see the part where we tried for days and days to nurse this horse back to life that ended up
Yeah.
having kidney failure, and they got to see kind of the cleaned up version of it, but what they didn't see is the horse you know walking out into the river and dying right beside our camp,
Mhm.
and that's tragic enough, but then coming back and knowing that we still have who knows how many days or weeks, and my horse lost a horseshoe, and there's a dead horse out in the river with horseshoes on its feet. And
Mhm.
so I wade out into the river with an axe and chop the leg off of a horse and bring it back and pry the horseshoe off of it and hammer it back onto my horse's foot with an axe, and try
Yeah.
and reuse the nails. And those are things that you don't see, but all of those things you know, they all add weight to
Yeah.
everything you're doing. And then at the end of it, you look back on that, and there's just so many things, that
Mhm.
you just kind of let go of it.
Yeah, exactly. And then, in that case, the people think of a sheep hunt, or any adventure hunt for that matter, as all the glory and the glamour. But there's a lot of shit that happens on the mountain that is not so fun, right? And just like you said, help paint that picture for yourself. And we all have different reasons for doing these crazy trips and adventures, and that's
Uh, I
that,
can I
yeah,
can I can sit here and things flash through my mind, like bathing in a glacier river because you can't stand the smell of yourself anymore. It's like cold enough to stop your heart, or having a gunfight with a grizzly bear, or
Yeah.
sleeping in the middle of where two glaciers come together and there's ice falling in the middle of the night and you can hear the glacier breaking, or being in weather that's so severe and so unbelievable that your life's in danger. You're on the verge of dying because exposure is so dangerous, or you know horses having accidents and falling on you, or falling over rocks and rivers and rolling over on you. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. There's a million instances like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think someone said to me, I can't remember who it was now, but they said, sheep hunting there's a lot more to it than counting rings,
Oh yeah, I
right?
can remember riding down a valley one night after we had a ram on the pack horse. And we're getting back down to where we're elk hunting, where our main camp is, and we're riding along, and it's so black you can't see your hand in front of your face. My horse, you just put your hands over your face and just ride, and try and
Hmm.
keep him getting rolled off the horse from the branches and stuff, because the horse is on the trail, and he stops and snorts, and he's spooked, and my horse doesn't do that unless there's a bear there. So damn well there's a bear somewhere beside you in the pitch black,
Somewhere.
very
Jesus.
close. Those are the kind of things that you think back on that, and there's like so many of those times.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah. I mean, that's epic stuff, buddy. I'm gonna read a message from someone you know really well. He goes by the name of Clay Weber, but it's really George. So you know this man very well. I know some of the story. I'm just gonna read it. You can probably see it, but I'm gonna read it for the podcast and stuff. So this is from Clay/George. I've had the pleasure of knowing Shane for over 30 years, hunting sheep, moose, elk, and deer. I can say that he is one of the best sheep hunters I've had the privilege of hunting with, who has a tremendous knowledge of most species. More importantly, I can say he's a good friend, and I learned great tips from him as a person and as a hunter. I hope a book is written about Shane. He's deserving of it. That's from George. So there
Those
you go.
okay. I actually got a really good story about him. It's very
Let's hear it.
so we're up on this bench, and we earlier in the hunt we had gone through this outfitter camp, and we were kind of
He's saying no, no, no.
we were trying to get over into another part of the country, and it was out of their area, and they were more than happy to point us in the direction of where the trail was
To get you out.
to get us out. But when we got up on the ridge, I always have a habit of stopping and glassing back where we came from. I looked across the valley, and there was a group of sheep, and you could see there was one big one in it. So we turned around and bailed off the hillside and went up the other side and killed the ram. It's a great sheep. Mm-hmm. And got back down to the trail and camped right on the horse trail. And as a consequence, the next day the outfitter came riding by with the client, and long faced and not very happy.
Yep.
And we rode back out and got back up on a bench on another mountain looking for a sheep for him. And all along this hunt, he'd been telling me about how he was going to write a book, and he was, he was avidly learning at that point and asking questions all the time, and wanting to know what this was all about, and it was fun to always talk to him and teach him and show him, and we were up on this hillside, and I was down kind of over a draw on this ridge, and a ram came walking out of this creek right up like 70 yards from me, and it was a 7-year-old ram, nice sheep. And I'm sitting there looking at it in the spotting scope, and all of a sudden I hear, like, I feel him lean over, like, right by my ear, and he goes, "I think I'll take him." I turned around and looked at him, and I go, "That ram's 7 years old, man. You can't shoot that sheep." He goes, "7? I thought he was older than that." And so we sat down and looked through the spot scope, and I explained, what I was seeing. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I see that." So we always joked about that book, about one of the chapters about aging would be titled, "I think I'll take him." But no, we had a tremendous amount of fun.
Oh, that's awesome. What a fantastic story. That's good stuff. Oh gosh. All right, Clay, your life's never going to be the same on here now. Sorry, buddy.
I remember
Uh,
when he killed his first ram. We'd seen this ram with one horn, and he's like, I don't know if I would shoot that ram with one horn. I'm like, that's a huge sheep. Go kill it.
yeah.
Okay, so I stayed back and watched from across the hillside, and he's about halfway up the hill, and you could see he was really struggling, and I'm waving him on. I'm like, "Whoa, get moving!" Like just really like adamantly trying to get him to go, and he was really, really struggling to get up there. But he finally made it up and got his sheep. But
Hmm.
he had to really boogie to get up that hill to get there in time to get him.
Oh, that's awesome.
Fortunate.
Yeah, it's funny, right? When you think about sheep hunts, you've got everybody's got the epic stories, right? You've always got the good ones, but I think it doesn't matter if it's a sheep hunt, elk, moose deer, whatever. There's what I call the B roll or the blooper roll. There's always the fun stuff that's behind the scenes, right? That
Yeah.
things that shit that just happens, and yeah,
Oh
we've
yeah.
had some incredibly funny ones. Somebody sits on a red anthill, right, or steps on a wasp nest or something. It's funny at the moment, but not so funny for the guy, right? But,
Yeah. Oh yeah. For
so.
sure. For sure.
Well, this has been an amazing visit here, Shane. I appreciate it. I think Blake had one more question from one of our guys he wanted to slip in there, right? You want to drop that one, Blake?
Yeah, we should get to it if we can. So Ryan Redicott, he was asking, just jumping back to desert sheep for a second. Do you see the future of Mexico desert sheep becoming more exclusive over the next 10 years, or do you foresee more opportunity with proper management?
There's going to be more opportunity for sure because the population is increasing. I don't know if you're going to see the price drop. I think you're going to. The problem with Mexico is that there's so many different options with so many different outcomes, and almost all of the outcomes that involve less money involve more problems, almost without fail. So it's like anywhere else, the bigger sheep command the better prices, and better areas command the better prices. So you get what you pay for. If you're willing to roll the dice and accept some risk, for a smaller sheep, then there's ways around it. There's sometimes landowners that know friends, and those kind of things happen. But
Yeah,
I mean, it's pretty tough to get away from the the basic idea of if you have to pay to play. If
yeah.
you're not,
I think
you
that's
you're lucky or you got to pay.
yeah, and I think that's the sheep hunting game, pretty much North America wide, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's supply
it,
and demand, right? I mean, Asia's
yeah.
Asia's wide open right now. I'm going to be doing a lot more work with Asia. I just took on a role with Arco Safaris. We're very bullish
Okay.
about Asia and hunting over there. And there's tremendous opportunities over there, and it's relatively on the lower end of the scale as far as money goes for
Hmm.
an adventure. So
Yeah,
it basically just depends on the supply and demand side of things, right? And when the
sure.
demand grows, the price grows.
Catch it before the demand starts to happen. That's the
Yeah.
best thing you can do. Yeah, I think that just looking back in recent years, from the North American side with regards to doll sheep and stone sheep for that matter. A lot of people took real solid advantage of COVID, right? And got Canadian residents got some killer deals and some great sheep out of, NWT, Yukon, places where you wouldn't normally go. And that, like, that's just a rarity, right? I mean, those that cashed in did a really good job on that. But, um, yeah, while we still have a few minutes, why don't you tell us a little bit about your operation, how people can find you, a little bit about what you do down there.
Well, we have Facebook is Ram Hunter Pallister. We have Instagram, ramhunter.com, our website. Um, those are all good ways to kind of see what's going on. We've had really good luck with social media, so we're usually posting stuff on Facebook and
Hmm.
Instagram, and we've had a lot of good input from social media. It's done well for us.
Yeah.
We've predominantly really focused on higher quality sheep and been pretty lucky that way. So things are working
Okay.
out well. Um, Yeah, those are probably the best ways to get a hold of
So
those.
you're so basically you are primarily desert sheep in Mexico is sort of the main bread and butter. Or do you hunt other stuff, deer and other species and stuff down there as
Yeah,
well?
we do some deer hunting, but I don't. I mean, I know of some reputable places to go, but deer hunting's uh, pretty tough in Mexico. I mean, it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and you know, just like with the sheep, everybody throws a 200-inch mark number around a lot, and that's a big number for a deer too. And
Oh
you
yeah.
know, any outfitters that you see that are killing big deer continually are
Hmm.
there's a big problem with planting going on down there. With they're drugging and planting animals, and people are going, "Oh, there's a big one at that feeder. Let's shoot him." Well, those are all pen raised deer that are just drugged and set in place for people to shoot. That happens a lot there.
That's shitty.
So to go and hunt a true desert muley is, you're looking at a 180-inch deer is a big deer.
Hmm.
There's exceptions for sure, but you got to go and hunt them, and they're hard to find. And there are some places that have very, very aggressive management strategies for free range, but those are
Hmm.
10, 15 years in the making, right? They're not just
Yeah.
off the cuff. So there are some places, and those places are all expensive because of their reputation and the work they put into it. And there's a lot of places that are inexpensive that are killing big deer, and you know,
Yeah.
then there's reasons why that's happening. Could
Yeah.
deer be a little more popular? But I don't. I definitely sometimes will send the right person in the direction of deer, but it's not my
Hmm.
focus. We're more focused on the big rams.
Hmm.
We do some work on Tiburon every year, and we've hunted the mainland, the Surrey mainland, and some of the higher end ranches we hunt, and we try and stick with people that know where there's no problems, there's no issues logistically, no issues with export, no issues with rifle permits.
Hmm.
Any of the places that there's predominantly been troubles with or history of any trouble, we stay away from. Just don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah, no doubt. So how many sheep hunts are you selling a year then down there?
We're usually around 5 a year. We stick to, like I said, higher end hunts, bigger
Mm.
rams. We really shied away from. I have a lot of opportunity to hunt, different areas, maybe areas that are a little more dangerous to hunt in. I'm just not interested in it.
Hmm.
I'd rather one or two really big rams than hunt 4 or 5 small ones and have problems.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
yeah.
All right. There's I have one question left, and then your friend. I'm going to ask your buddy, Mr. Weber's question.
I can only
He's had a
imagine.
minute or two. He has had a minute or two after that story. He's
Well, to
going,
be
hey,
in all fairness, he's really come into his own. He's become a really good hunter, really good sheep hunter. So
he
he's
has,
helped a
and
lot of people out, and he's been very, very humble and very helpful to a lot of people.
he
And
has, and I'll tell you what, he's been on the platform here for a few months, and we've gotten to know him. The community's gotten to know him, and he's found his home here, and we love having him. He's a big contributor to the platform, and he's a very helpful guy. But his question for you, he says, "Hey Shane, does the hairdo help or hurt getting clients?"
well, I figure if they're looking at me, then they're looking in the wrong spots.
Yeah, exactly. They should be looking at sheep, right? So
Yeah.
awesome. All right. Well, I know you have a passion for this, and you spoke about it earlier a little bit, but um, what kind of a message regarding conservation would you want to give to all of our community for the hunters in the spike camp community? What does conservation mean to you? What should it mean to everybody?
Conservation is tremendously important to me. It's the sheep hunting is arguably the upper echelon of hunting in North America. You're if you're gonna go hunt sheep, you're stepping into a fraternity of arguably some of the top athletes. People with physical, mental stamina that's unmatched. people with a passion for conservation. So if you are considering hunting sheep, or if it's in your future, get involved with a club, get involved with wild sheep, get your membership, start learning about what you want to do. And it's a great group of people. It's the wild sheep is a great conservation movement, and like I said, arguably world renowned, one of the best in the world.
Yep.
And get involved and start practicing, hard ethical hunting, and do it in a way that's going to support future generations hunting what you love to do. I mean, I've been almost 40 years doing this, and I like nothing more than to see young guys that are going out and strapping on packs. We're going to hike that whole mountain range. And I'm like, oh, that's a great idea, but maybe sit on this one and look across and spend your time looking and then hike, or
Yeah.
offer some small bits of information, or putting them in touch with people that I know that are involved with wild sheep, because they're interested in becoming, involved in conservation efforts, or there's a lot of resources available, and there's a lot of people willing to help.
Absolutely. Well, amen to that, brother. That's very well said. And we're all drinking the Kool-Aid here. That's why we're running sheep camp, and that's a nice segue for me, because I'm closing with this for in the next 2 or 3 episodes here. But we are just a reminder that we're running a custom rifle giveaway specifically for conservation. Blake just posted the link to it there, and the details are all on the platform. The concept is, we're going to give you a gun, but we want you to go and spend some money at one of our conservation partner groups. We had 3 that kind of helped us get going. It was the Wild Sheep Society BC, Wild Sheep Foundation Alberta, and the Goat Alliance. You crack open the piggy bank, spend some money, whether it's buying a membership, upgrade, buy someone else a membership, donate some cash. There's a donate button on all 3 of those websites. We need to feed these guys money. And once you've done that, obviously, if you're already on Spike Camp, we have our rewards program. You can generate some entries there. But, I'm reminding everybody that the concept here is to raise funds for these groups. We need them. We need them to be able to support the animals. They need to support hunting in Western Canada. We need them. So get out there and support them.
They're actively advocating for what we love to do, so they're worth supporting.
Absolutely. Well, my friend, this has been an amazing interview. Thanks for showing up, and I apologize for the time zone confusion at the start of the show.
No problem.
Right on. Well, we're going to get you back on. I'm going to do a series here again sometime later this year on international hunting, and I want to include Mexico in that mix. So we'll have a specific episode for that. So anyway, just want to thank all the members for showing up tonight. Thank you guys very much. We have 2 more episodes on Sheep Camp. Next Wednesday, Waste Dog is chatting with Tyler Friel, going to unpack doll sheep hunting and hunting gear. And then on Thursday, we've got our pal Willie coming on to talk about stone rams, because we're getting close to opener, man. We got to get after it. So have a good night.
I'm going to get my butt out there soon too. So.
Oh, I forgot to ask. Yeah, what's your hunting plans before we shut down?
My hunting season is always frantic and hectic. So since I took on the Asia stuff, it's kind of really blown up. So I try and fit it in wherever, but I'm going to take some time this year. And my daughter wants to get a ram. My girlfriend wants to get one. I think I've only taken 2 rams in the last 15 or 18 years myself. I've passed a lot up, so it might be my year or no.
All right. Well, best of luck to you, man. Be safe out there, and I look forward to seeing the pictures and the stories on Spike Camp, man. You can share.
You bet. Yeah, thanks for everything you guys do too. Appreciate it.
Right on. All right, buddy. Have a good night,
Thank
everybody.
You, Shane.
Good night.